Thank you. Welcome everybody to the Audit and Risk Management Committee meeting Monday the 25th of January 2021. I'd like to remind all members, my name is Catherine Hodson and I'm the Chair of Audit and Risk, and I'd like to remind all members and attendees to turn off their cameras and microphones until asked to speak. I'd like the Borough Solicitor Colin Hughes. Colin, could you undertake a roll call of the members present, please? Thank you.
Yes, when your name is called, please turn your camera on, declare your presence, and then turn off your microphone. Starting Jo Bird.
Good evening. Good evening.
Okay. Kate Cannon.
Good evening, Councillor Cannon present.
All right, good. Tony Cox.
Present.
Okay. David Burgess-Joyce.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Colin. I'm here.
Yeah. Karl Greaney.
Good evening, present.
Kathy Hodson.
Present and correct.
Adrian Jones.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes. Stuart Kelly.
Yes, I'm here. Thanks.
Ian Lewis.
Ian Lewis, present.
Okay. And Stuart Whittingham.
Present.
Okay. All present,
Chair.
Councillor. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair, see Councillor Green on the call earlier.
Sorry?
Chair, as mentioned a little bit earlier, I'm here as ex officio. I don't have a vote. I'm just a kind of guest, really.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
if I could confirm that all leaders of political parties are able to be guests at any of the meetings. That is correct, isn't it, Colin?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Webcast notice. This meeting will be webcast and a record retained on the council website. For those at home viewing the webcast, I would like to inform you that if you look above the video, you will see a resources tab. Select this and a link to the agenda will appear in the right-hand side. This will allow you to open the agenda in PDF form and follow the discussion and debate. Agenda item 2, do we have any apologies for absence?
There's none, Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, members' declarations of interest. And so I'll invite members to declare any interest if there is any.
Just in interest, Chair. In relation to agenda item 8, I believe it is, which is for a primary school.
Yeah.
A personal interest by way of my employment.
Okay. That doesn't preclude you from
No, it's
entering the debate.
my employer took a position during the recent dispute between the school trade unions.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks, Stuart. Okay, minutes. I'd like to invite members to approve the accuracy of the minutes of the meetings held on the 16th of November and the 11th of January. Before we agree the meetings, I did notice 3 errors in section 14 of the minutes of January the 11th, and I've spoken to Cher Halewood and Mark about this. The 3 errors, do you want me to say what they are? Shall I say, Colin?
Yes.
Right, the 3 errors in paragraph 6 of section 14, the council has a projected deficit of 75.6 million. It should say after that over 2 years, over the next 2 years.
Okay.
And also the external auditor, his name is Mark Stocks, not Stokes. Mm-hmm. And further down it says COVID-10 when it should read COVID-19. So Vicky's aware of that, so they will be amended after this.
Yes, that's fine. That's fine.
Are there any other errors that anybody may have spotted in the 2 reports for the 16th of November and the 11th of January? No? Okay. All right then, so we'll note those minutes. Agenda item 5 is public and member questions, and I'm not aware of any public or member questions having been received. So agenda item 6, which is item 5 on the agenda. Mark Niblock, the Chief Internal Auditor, will present the report, and I'd like to remind members that the report is contained in the supplement that was subsequently sent out. So Mark, if I could ask you to give your report, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is a regular report that I present to members of the Audit and Risk Management Committee. Contains information relating to the delivery of the Internal Audit Service. This particular report also acknowledges the significant impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on the service delivery. The report covers the relatively short reporting period from the end of November through to the end of December 2020 and concentrates on the impact of COVID on the internal audit plan of work for 2020-21, internal audit activity for the November-December period, planned internal audit work for the remainder of the year, items of note arising from the work completed. At section 3.3 on page 2 of the committee paper, I identify the significant ongoing impact the pandemic has had on the internal audit plan for this year, drawing members' attention to the COVID-19 work undertaken by the team and the corresponding changes that have been made to the plan to accommodate this. Members will recall that a copy of the revised audit plan was endorsed by this committee at the November 2020 meeting. Section 3.4 on page 3 of the committee papers, I identify some of the work that internal audit have been undertaking during the period, which includes both COVID-19 related work and support and scheduled audit work in key risk areas such as the pension fund, benefits and digital governance. Of particular interest is a piece of work completed to evaluate a sample of key decisions taken during the pandemic for compliance with agreed governance processes and procedures. The findings of the review indicated that fundamental governance requirements were being complied with a small number of procedural issues flagged for action going forward. This is identified as section 3.4.5 on page 4. Section 3.4.7 on page 4, I identify some of the work currently ongoing that includes the piece of work on the World Growth Company and the piece of work on cybersecurity. Section 3.5 on page 5 of the committee papers, I identify some of the work planned by the team for the remainder of the year, as identified in the revised internal audit plan, capturing and targeting work in some of the areas where increased risks have arisen as a result of the pandemic. Section 3.6 on page 6 of the report, I would identify here any items of note that I wanted to escalate to yourselves or bring specifically to your attention that are none for this particular period. Members are asked to note the report, and at this point I'm more than happy to take any questions that members may have.
Thanks, Mark. Does anybody have any questions for Mark at this point? Any hands up? No? No? Okay. Well, the Audit and Risk Management Committee is recommended to note the report. Thank you for that, Mark. If you'd like to...
Chair.
Yes, go on.
I think, yeah, Councillor Burgess-Joyce has got his hand up.
Oh, no. Oh. Okay, David, sorry, I can't see your hand up.
No, thanks, Stuart. I did just very briefly, if you'll allow me, Chair, I appreciate that I may have just missed the window there. It was just, Mark, regarding the, there was something I saw, and forgive me if you're not involved, but there was something around information that wasn't forthcoming over the golf resort. Were you involved in that as a matter of interest? I don't expect you to go into detail here, but were you involved in that?
No, I haven't been involved in that. That's not something I'm aware of or have had any indirect involvement with, Councillor.
That's fine.
But I'll make some inquiries. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Stuart. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Anybody else got any questions for Mark? No? Okay, well, agenda item 7, corporate risk management update. This is item 6 on the agenda. And if I could ask Mark, the Chief Internal Auditor, to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. If I could ask a colleague of mine, Helen Turner, who's our Risk and Continuity Manager, to present the report, please.
Oh, certainly. Thank you, Chair. So this is one of our regular reports, just like giving a update on the corporate risk management arrangements for the council. As Mark alluded to in his report, it has been a short period since the last update, so there are just a handful of things to update the committee on and draw to your attention, things that are ongoing at the moment. So primarily among those is the corporate risk register, which came as draft to the committee back in November, and is still undergoing some review and alignment to the Wirral plan 2025 as the priorities and activity is being refreshed ahead of the new financial and business plan year. A summary of the corporate risks is attached in Appendix 1, just the risk descriptions at this stage. Also, just to update the committee that the new performance management framework that's being developed, the corporate risks will be aligned to that process, and new arrangements are being put in place to monitor risk through the organisational performance board, which has met on I think 2 occasions now, and also in terms of compliance through the corporate governance group. At where are we? 3.2.5. We're looking at 3.2.6. It's highlighted that there was a question raised last November's committee around the couple of risks around the information management arrangements for the council, and there will be a full detailed report brought by the senior information risk owner to the March committee meeting. To go into more detail about that, but there's just a little bit of detail about some of the key pieces of work that are going on at the moment, given the impact of COVID-19 on the way we're all working, and the increased risks around the information management issues in particular. And that includes things such as updated e-learning courses that are available and should be completed by all staff and members, increased work on the data protection and information sharing with partners. There's obviously been a lot of things going on in this area, and that's led to a review of key policies and continued staff awareness raising about the basic responsibilities that everyone has in terms of information management. At 3.3, I go into a little detail about the assurance mapping exercise that's been started or in development, and as Mark alluded to, some forms of assurance haven't been fully possible. Audits and things haven't been able to be delivered this year, so we're looking at a different approach to gathering that assurance for the council and for the committee. And that will include gathering information from a variety of sources, both the day-to-day management, a bit of a self-assessment of assurance, the other corporate compliance areas, risk management, health and safety, etc. In all of that, and also internal audit itself, but also the external audit and other external sources of assurance. And the mapping exercise will try and bring all of that information together to provide a comprehensive picture across all areas of the corporate risks, to give that real understanding of what's gone on this year. So that is in development, as I say. And finally, the other thing to just draw attention to is 3.4, the member subgroup that's been got a date in the diary for the chair and spokespersons. It's been arranged for next Monday morning, and that will be part of a training programme for the year, but it will include a bit of a session on the basics of risk management and how we do things in Wirral, but also then moving on to a review of the corporate risks and looking in more detail and having a bit more time to look in more detail at those corporate risks. So I think that covers everything. If members are asked to note the report and its contents, and if there's any questions, Chair, happy to take them now.
There's just one or two items. Helen, excuse me. The member subgroup, there may be some people who aren't able, and I know Stuart and Kay will be one of them, that will want to and need to attend the member subgroup training. And if it's in the morning, that will preclude people that need to be there. So is there a possibility that we could change the at the time, and if necessary the date, so that chairs and spokespersons can attend that session, all of them, without being precluded. I'm not sure what's on Monday night. I mean, I think for Stuart, sort of 5:30 onwards is better for him. So if you could let us know what time that's going to be and change it, and liaise with Stuart and any other member that wanted to be there but can't be there in the day.
Yeah, certainly. I'll look into that, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks. Does anybody have anything to say to Helen at all, to ask her anything? No, well, oh yeah, sorry, Kate Cannon, yeah, you got your hand up, and also Jo Bird. So Kate first and then Jo.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that report. I've just wondered, I've obviously had a look through the paperwork, and I just wondered if you could give me an idea of what the overall risk appetite is for the local authority, and do we have different risk appetites depending on, for different services? And I couldn't see that anywhere in the report, so I was just wondering if you could just steer me in the right direction. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, there are different appetites across the organisation. Some areas such as children's services might be different to library services. So yeah, that has to be factored into the equation, which does make it difficult to articulate in a snappy sentence or a one-liner. And that's actually one of the pieces of work that we're looking to develop into the new year. And I've actually got a meeting booked in tomorrow to talk to the chief executive, and it's one of the things I want to raise with him there, to see if we can define that a bit more clearly. It is laid out in the scoring matrix and the different thresholds of risk and how they should be treated, but I think we need to articulate it a bit better and clearer. So yeah, that certainly will be coming back to committee shortly, hopefully.
Thank you, Chair. And if we could just have that noted, it would be useful to bring that back to committee to discuss, if that's okay with you, Chair.
Obviously, yeah, that's fine. Jo?
Thanks. And thank you very much to Helen for the excellent report, very clear and informative. I'm wondering, is there benchmarking with other local authorities about our relative risk profile?
No, not benchmarking such that there is a SIPFA and Alarm, the public sector risk management organisations. They do a benchmarking exercise in terms of strategy and culture, and there's a performance framework against which is used to develop our risk management strategy. I'm still relatively new to the council. I joined just over 12 months ago, and the risk management strategy is one of the things I'm looking to update this year, and look into a bit more detail about that sort of thing. So it's certainly sort of one of the things on the list, I think.
Thank you, that's great.
Does anybody else want to ask Helen anything? No, if I could just comment, Helen. Obviously, this year, coming year for audit and risk, it's for your department and Mark. There are going to be some significant changes and additional workloads in terms of the council's response to COVID-19 and staff working remotely, which will have a bearing on GDPR regulations and also from an audit point of view, and also, of course, things like fraud in terms of money that's been paid out through the COVID pandemic, business relief, and the money that's been given to help with people who are applying for grants and what have you, to make sure that they are going where they should be going. So I think it's not unfair to say that you're going to have your work cut out in the next year. So good luck with that one. Does anybody else want to have anything to say on that report? No? Okay. Thank you for that, Helen.
Thank you, Chair.
So the Audit and Risk Management Committee is recommended to note the report. Now, the next item is item 7 on the agenda, which is an internal audit report into Woodchurch Primary School. The following item contains exempt information, so before we go off camera, I will read out this recommendation. and that is that under section 100A, subsection 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A as amended to that act. The public interest test has been applied and favours exclusion. Exemption is to be moved and seconded, and agreed that the committee moved into exempt session. Does anybody want to have anything to say? Yes, I can see hands up already. So Stuart, if you want to speak first, and then Stuart Kelly.
Okay,
Stuart Whittingham.
Thanks, Chair. I was glad you said Stuart Kelly second, not Eddie, because it wasn't clear which Stuart you meant.
Change your name.
So basically, I fully, having read the report, I fully support and understand the reasons why it needs to go into exemption. However, I do feel that both the parents and the staff at Whitchurch Primary deserve more than just a line on the agenda saying exempt. So we will be moving a recommendation from the Labour group in terms of amending that recommendation and see if we can get a bit more information into the public, because as David Cameron said, the best is disinfecting sunshine. Okay.
Before that, what I would want to do in any event is to ask the borough solicitor to make recommendations as to whether that's feasible. Stuart Kelly, did you want to speak? Speak first, and then Colin, you could reply to both.
Yeah, that's. I mean, there's two aspects to I think what I asked for at the last meeting. That was obviously for us to gain an understanding of what had happened in the past, and in order to do that, clearly the auditors have had to do a very detailed report, which they have, which raise issues of confidentiality, which I'm sure Mr. Hughes will refer to. I think the second part of what I was hoping to achieve was where we go from here, looking forward, if you like. So there's the looking back aspect of this, where clearly the confidentiality has been triggered for one reason or another, and looking forward, have things improved? Are schools at risk of similar issues happening? Have controls been tightened? Because I think what I said last time was that not only did members obviously want reassurance that controls are in place, but other schools would want reassurance that they weren't going to fall into the same issues that Woodchurch has had. Now, it's that aspect I'm hoping that Mr. Hughes and Mr. Niblock might feel able to comment on before we go into exemption, to provide that reassurance as soon as possible. Then obviously, the legal advice is the legal advice. We'll go into exemption, and perhaps we could then kick around where we go from here and see whether there are aspects of the confidential report that can be brought back, maybe at a later date, maybe in a slightly different format, to provide further reassurance. But I was hoping before we go into exemption to discuss the past, we can maybe reflect for a moment or two on the future and to give that reassurance.
Okay. Now we'll bring Mark in to make some comments. Now, Colin, do you want to comment on the area of exemption, or shall I bring Mark in first to talk about areas that would not fall into exemption, and just to answer Stuart's query with regard to going forward, what will be brought to audit and risk to allay Stuart's fears that members of the public and teachers and other schools in Wirral can be assured.
Yes, I think that would be helpful if Mark could contribute now. Yeah.
Okay, Mark, if you'd like to contribute on that one.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And certainly in response to, Councillor Kelly has a very good question he's raised, kind of thing, and I'm certainly mindful of the fact that yes, you were looking for assurances in addition to the looking back. You were looking for assurances in relation to sort of what happens moving forward and what actions have been taken to prevent any type of kind of recurrence, but also to as you quite rightly point out, Councillor, to alert other schools to the potential for this kind of thing to happen. There is a lot of work that's going on at the moment, like within the council, to certainly ensure that there isn't a recurrence. The report itself actually does refer to some measures that have been taken in relation to both Woodchurch, but also across other schools. I certainly have no objection whatsoever. I probably think it's a good idea, and I was talking to the chair this morning about bringing back a report to the March meeting that would kind of provide a progress update report on those actions that have been identified as being reasonable and effective and sort of, you know, helpful in terms of addressing the kind of the underlying issues, and I'll say providing an update for yourselves by way of an assurance that yes, these measures have been taken, they are in place, kind of thing, and that they will act in a preventative way to prevent any potential recurrence, either at sort of Woodchurch or at any other sort of given school. So I think the March committee was earmarked. It's 5-6 weeks away at best, kind of thing. That there's no reason why I can't be bringing a report that encompasses all of that, like, and that doesn't sort of contravene any of our kind of disclosure and GDPR kind of issues that have clearly kind of come to the fore this evening. So I think with your blessing, Chair, and assuming that everyone is in agreement, like, then I can certainly do that, and we deal with this report as is this evening as an exempt item. Yeah. It is exempt because it does contain a significant amount of information that could clearly potentially identify individuals, like, which I think is where we fall foul of the GDPR legislative, if I'm not mistaken, Colin. So
if I could just
I think sorry, Chair.
So Stuart, would you be happy then if we bring to the March Audit and Risk Committee a substantial document that will allay your fears and give some information that will more fully explain what's happened, and give an update on what remedies are in place and audit and risk procedures that have been tightened up or changed to make sure it doesn't happen again? So if we bring that to the March committee, that won't be an exempt item, and therefore it will be webcast, and therefore in terms of allowing the public and other schools to have information in the public domain, that would satisfy that criteria. So in that respect, is that okay with you, Stuart? And I can see that Stuart Whittingham has got his hand still up. Did you want to speak again, Stuart, or is it just still up from before?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's just to, I was under the impression that Mr. Hughes was going to give us some advice in terms of,
the borough solicitor. Sorry, the borough solicitor is going to explain for members that may not be entirely sure why the item is an exempt item, just to clarify that. And then, of course, as Mark Niblock has said, we will be bringing a report to the March Audit and Risk Committee that will investigate further this failing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Colin, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be bringing amendments and recommendations following discussion.
So is this after Colin's spoken?
After we've discussed the item in the exempt session, we'll bring amendments and recommendations.
So I'm not quite with you. So we're going to discuss this in the exempt section. Then you want to bring an amendment?
Discuss it in the exempt session, following discussion, and everyone's had a chance to. We'll be bringing an amendment to the recommendations.
Is that in the council? Is that in the exempt session you're talking about?
In the exempt session, yeah.
Yes, I see. Yes. Well, if I can perhaps explain, Chair, what the legal background to this is. It's exempt because it reveals the identity of persons whose privacy is protected under the General Data Protection Regulation, and they cooperated fully with the internal audit report intended to review the financial management and accounting procedures. and under the regulation, it's not necessary for their identities to be disclosed to the public in order to achieve that purpose. I am concerned that anything in open session could lead to the identities of these persons being disclosed, and that's why I would commend to the committee what Mr. Niblock is suggesting is the best way to achieve openness, but at the same time respecting the privacy of the people who are referred to in this confidential report.
So, Chair, could I just come back on that briefly? So in me preamble earlier, I'd mentioned that I fully support having read the documents, I fully support the reasons why it's exempt. I'm not going to challenge that. However, no, I did say that the pupils, I felt the pupils and the staff at Whitchurch Primary deserve more than a line on an agenda item saying exempt. So when the time comes, we'll move our amendments and then.
Okay. Although I have made it quite clear, Stuart, that in the next March meeting, the internal auditor will bring a report which will be webcast and will be in the public domain. So I don't know whether or not your amendment is necessary if we're going to bring something to the next meeting.
Yeah, we'll see when we get there.
Okay.
Obviously, as Stuart just said, we'll obviously have to discuss that in the terms of when we're talking in greater detail during the exempt item, what it is that Stuart Whittingham wishes to move. I think I've heard what Mr. Niblock said in obviously general terms, that he's advising us orally that processes have been changed and tightened, and that he's as confident as he can be that the situation that Woodchurch has found itself in is unlikely to be repeated. I'm saying this is entirely a general observation. I think that's what I heard Mr. Niblock say, and he's nodding. I think we're going to have to be content with that oral update for now. That's what I was after. Schools listening in will have some assurance from that, and obviously now they will probably have to wait to March maybe for a little bit more detail as to what that general statement entailed. In that case, because you asked me whether I was happy, Chair, and I'm content to leave it there and to move into exemption, where we can explore some of the issues for an exemption, and then maybe consider what it is Stuart wants to be.
Committee recommends to note the report, and that we now the following item is exempt. So I do need seconder. Yeah. So is somebody going to second that?
I'll second that.
Thanks very much, Stuart. So now the following item will go into exemption, and so can I have confirmation